This is going to be hopefully a short video showing you how to make Pong. For this one I'm going to use a Surface tablet. Last time I used an iPad, this time I'm going to use a Surface just to show that you can do it on various devices. I'm going to start by going on to Internet Explorer on my Surface. And I'm going to go to TouchDevelop.com and I'm going to open the web app. And I'm logging in using my Microsoft Live login. Because I'm already set up to log in that on my Surface, it didn't ask me for the actual login, but it might ask you that. We're going to make Pong today, so I'm going to go into Create Script. I'm going to use the quick method. I'm going to do blank game, which basically sets up the kind of game for you and gives you lives and score. I'm just going to call it Pong 2. Very original. Okay, now if you run that, you'll find that we have a blank game board with lives and score. I'm going to add the pictures that I need now for it. So I'm going to make a kind of Star Wars Pong. So first of all, I'm going to look for Star Wars. I'm going to take that ball, we're going to use that as a ball. I'm going to click on add again. I'm going to go to pick and I'm going to scroll down and search online pick, and we're going to look for Yoda because we're going to use his lightsaber for one of the bats. There we go. Right, I'm going to click on add new action again, go to pick. I'm going to search online and I'm going to look for Darth. Now these are pictures that I've uploaded myself, so if you want to do your own, upload instead of doing this. So there's Vader Saber, I'm going to take that. Okay, now feel free, as I say, to upload your own artwork instead and take the upload button there instead of search online. Add, and one more thing that I need, one more picture I need as a background. So what we're going to do is space. And I'll take that one, that'll do nicely. Okay, so now if I scroll down here, we've got a space background, we've got Star Wars ball, we've got a lightsaber and another lightsaber, and those are going to be our graphics for the game. So let's go into Pong 2 now and go into main. So in main we're going to just set a few things up. I'm actually going to set the background of the wall behind the game board to black, just so when it goes to the high score table it doesn't go white and kind of fits in more with it. So I'm going to take wall and then set background, and I'm going to delete out by using backspace the random and change it to black. If I run that now, you should see it's black. Okay, I'm also going to set the board though, so I'm going to set board, set background picture. Again, if you don't see the icon there, use the blue arrows and look for set background picture. I'm going to take game, sorry not game, art, and select the background, and if I run that again, we now have the game set up with our background. Okay, I'm actually going to change the start option here on the game start because I want to specify the size of it so that it will work nicely on a phone. So I'm going to take start with fixed size, and I'm going to make it the resolution of the standard Windows Phone resolution of 800. Try that again, 800 by 480, and run that. Okay, it doesn't look like any difference, but if you look carefully you'll see there's a border around the left and right sides now. Okay, so that's me got my game board set up. Next I want to add in the graphics. First of all I'm going to add in a variable for the ball, so I'm going to say variable and I'm going to change that to ball, and I'm going to specify board and create a picture sprite, and that command is create picture. Click on art and take the Star Wars ball. Now if I run that, you'll find that ball is much too big, so let's change the size of that. So we're going to say ball, we're going to set width and set the width to 25. You can change that to whatever you want. There we go, a nice little ball. I'm going to add a new line. Now if I was doing that too quick, you click on a line and hit that plus there, which adds a new line underneath. I'm going to say ball, set position, and I'm going to set the position of the ball to the center of the screen. It actually is already there, but we're going to have to be setting it back to the center of the screen later on, so it's handy to make sure we do this. So board width divided by 2 is the center on the x-axis. Board, and you guessed it, height divided by 2 is the center on the y-axis. So run that again, the ball's in the middle. Add it, click on that line, click on add underneath and add another line, and it's ball, set speed, and we are going to take this, we're going to make random, so math, random range, not random, random range. Now if it's random range isn't there, take the search option and type in random, and we want random range so that we can specify a number between two values. So we're going to start the speed at 100, and the maximum speed is going to be 200 on the X, and on the Y I'm going to just cheat a bit and type random up here, and we're going to take math random range, and we're going to set that to slightly less. We're going to start at a minimum speed of 50 and a maximum of 150. Okay, if we run that now, the ball moves. If you run it again, the ball moves. It should go different ways. Okay, it's going the same every time. It's actually going the same every time, but at a different speed. Right, now this is the next bit. We're going to change what direction it goes. The reason I didn't use negative values in that is because I don't want the ball to ever get a 0 value and go straight up and straight down. So I'm giving it values between the range that I want, and then we're going to use more random to set whether those values are negative. So I'm going to say math random 2 equals 1, which is basically a 50-50 choice. It's either going to be 1 or 0, that math random 2. So if it's 1, which is basically, as I said, a 50-50 roll, we're going to say speed, set speed in the X. And again, if you don't see that, try typing in set speed or speed X, set speed X, and we're going to set it to itself, but the negative of itself, ball. And again, if it's not there, type in speed. Right, so ball set speed, that, and sorry, that's all we're doing with that. Now you might want to save yourself a bit of time and click on the if statement there and hit copy. Click on the else, hit that diagonal arrow there to add a new line underneath, not inside the else, and paste that in, because the next line is pretty much the same apart from we're not setting the speed on the X or setting speed on the Y. Alright, and again we're going to just set it to the negative of itself, so if it's not there, which it's not coming up for me, so speed Y. Okay, so we give it a random value, and then we decide whether the X and Y are going to be negative. So that time it went down the way. If we run it again, it's going the other direction. Run it again, same way, but one more time. There we go. So it's going different directions, as you can see there. Now, a handy thing that we can do is we can change that into a function, because we're going to need to reset the ball and give it a new speed every so often. So I'm clicking on the first line there. I'll do that again just to click on that first line there, click on the select button on the right, drag down this little red arrow to be highlight it all, and then we're going to extract it, and I'm going to call it spawn ball, and I'm going to click on extract, and that's now turned into its own little function there with the same commands, with parameters being passed in, and if you run it again the same thing happens, but it's kept that code neater, and it also means that we can use that spawn ball whenever we need it. Now we want to stop the ball going at the bottom of the screen, and we're going to use obstacles for that, which are very handy for that. We're going to say board, we're going to create an obstacle, and what you give the obstacle is the XY coordinates, and the XY coordinates of this obstacle is the top left hand corner, which is 0, 0. The width on the X is going to be the width of the actual board, because we want to set it right across the top. And that's actually it for that. Right, 1 is how much it bounces. We want it to bounce fully. We're also going to set colour on it though, because we want it to be transparent so that you don't see this border. Right, if I run that now, And luckily it went up the way it should bounce off the top. Right, and we want to do another one for the bottom, so we're going to say board, create obstacle. In fact, I'm going to cheat and copy the line before. And add a new line, paste that line in, same thing exactly. The only difference is the Y coordinate, we're not starting at the top left, we're starting at the bottom left. The Y position for that is the board height, because it's 0, 0 is the top left hand corner. Down the way it gets bigger, to the right it gets bigger. So if we run that now, the ball will bounce off the bottom, if it hits the bottom, that is. There we go. Okay, so now we have it bouncing off the top and the bottom. Okay, so we're quickly getting places. Next we're going to add in the bat. So we're going to say var, we're going to say bat1, and we are going to make board, create picture, choose art, and choose Yoda. You can be Vader if you want, but I like being Yoda. Then we're going to set the X position. So set X to 100. Now the reason I'm setting in 100 is so that we've got space to the left of it to use your finger to move it. We're going to say bat1, and we're going to set the height, which remember also sets the width, but I want the bats to be the same height to keep things equal. So I'm looking for set height. Again, if it's not there, type in height up there. Set height, and we're going to set it to 100. Okay, if we run that now, there we go, the bat's in. Let's do the same again. So var bat2, board, create picture, art, Vader, and then we're going to do the same thing, bat2, set X, and we're bringing it in from the right, so the width of the board minus 100, so it's even on the other side, and we're going to set bat2, set the height to 100, the same as the other bat, and run that, and we have the two bats now. So we're getting places quickly. Now we're going to add on either a game loop, or we're going to, in this case I'm not going to do a game loop, I'm going to do board. I'm going to do the other newer approach, which is to add and add on every frame, which basically means any code add in here will happen each time. Now it's suggested in the notes that you add in comments at this point. I'll do one, I'm not going to do them all for the sake of time, but it is good to comment your code. So if you hit the comment button, you can say things like spin, the next line is going to spin the ball. Right, and this is just explanation of what we're doing. Right, that doesn't run as code, and then I'm going to say ball. I'm going to set the angular speed. Now we did this in Fruit Ninja, but we're going to set the angular speed. Okay, which is basically how much the ball turns, and we're going to set it to equal the speed on the X, which is a trick we did in Fruit Ninja as well. If we run that now, you should see that the ball spins now. Okay. Now we're going to set it as well in here. Now everything we want to happen during the game has to be put in here. So we're going to say if we touch the board, if board is touched. Right, so if the user touches the board, we're going to set the bat position on the first bat to be equal to the Y coordinates of where you've touched, which is the simplest way I've found to do this kind of game. So board, set Y on the bat to board, touch current is what we're looking for. Touch current and the Y. Okay, I'm also going to add in a line which you might think is unnecessary, but I'm also going to set X to 100. I'm only doing that because I've had experience of this, and sometimes if you drag the bat out of the screen it changes the X. And you can now see that I can use, you can't see my finger, but trust me, I'm using my finger, and I can actually now drag the bat up and down with my finger. Okay, moving on. Right, next thing we're going to add in here is to check for it hitting the bat. So we're going to say if ball overlaps with, and again if it's not there, search for it, just look for over, should be enough. Overlaps with, not bat, yeah, bat 1. Right, and we're going to do a simple way for collisions now. All we're going to say is if it hits bat 1, we're going to reverse the speed of the ball, sorry. So set speed X, set speed X to the same as it currently is, but absolute it. Now if you know your maths, absolute basically takes the current speed or the current value and makes it positive, which is what we want to do. So we're saying basically set speed x to itself but make it absolute, which makes it positive. The reason I use absolute and not just minus it is to make sure that it goes left. Right, if I get that and try to get it go to the left, yeah, always the same, isn't it? There we go. If I hit that now, right there, the ball bounces back, do you see? Okay, and then we're going to do exactly the same pretty much for the other side. So I'm going to copy that and paste that in, but we're going to say bat2 obviously, and for bat2 when it hits it, we want it to be negative, so we're still going to use the absolute because we want to force it to be negative. So we're going to make it positive, then we're going to make it negative. So the only difference there is a little minus in and bat2. If we run that again now, it's going to miss that bat. Right, we need to add in the AI so you can play the computer. That should make it bounce off the 2 bats. Okay. Before we add in the AI, we're just going to make the ball respawn and add points. So if the ball, whoops, undo that. Right. So we're saying if ball on the X is less than, now it's basically 0, but because we want the ball to be fully out, it's half of the width of the ball because it's slightly more than 0, because the center position, remember, the ball, the position is the center of the sprite. So ball width, again if it's not there, just look for it, divided by 2. So if it basically goes at the left hand side of the screen, we're going to remove a life because we're playing a one-player version of Pong where you're fighting against a computer. So we're going to remove 1 life from the game, and we're going to use the wee routine we made earlier. So I'm going to click in code and spawn the ball, and we don't want to spawn the bat, by the way. You can do that if you want, that'd be quite funny, but we're going to spawn the ball. Okay, let's see if we get lucky and it goes left. Typical. Right, there it goes left. If it goes at left hand side now, we should lose a life and the ball respawned. Okay, I'm going to do one more. If the ball on the X is now greater than the board width, which is the right hand side of the board, plus half of the ball width, to make sure again it's right the way out, we are then going to give score. So I'm going to say game add score. Now again, not set score but add score. Right. And it's up to you how many points. I'm just going to be meaning give 1 point, but you can make that 10 or whatever. And again, if it goes at that side, we also want to respawn the ball. And again, make sure it's the ball you're respawning, not the bat. And now we almost have a game. Alright, set the computer isn't playing. Alright. So we're getting close. It's getting exciting now. Right, next line we're going to say var. We're going to set up a speed for the AI so that you can change this to adjust how good the computer plays. I'm going to make the speed 400. Okay, then I'm going to say if math absolute. Okay, and what we're doing here is we're basically checking if the ball on the y-axis here is greater than or smaller than where you are. Now what we're going to do first though in this line is just check that it's how far away the ball is from the bat, because if the ball's pretty close to the bat we don't want to move it, because otherwise the bat will shake up and down, like it'll constantly move it. So I'm saying take the ball's y position and take away from that bat's 2's y position, absolute it so we get a positive value, and then check what size it is. So I'm going to say greater than 60. So at this point we know that if this condition is true, the ball is more than 60 pixels on the y up and down away from the bat, and we should move towards it. Then what we need to say is if the ball on the y is less than, which means it's above bat on the y, so the ball is above the bat, and if that happens we're going to say bat2, we're going to set acceleration. Again, if it's not there, search for it. Set acceleration on the y to minus the AI speed that we just created, which is up the way. Remember, up the way is minus. And if else, which means the ball is below it, we're going to say back to set acceleration to AI speed, not 9 minus is 10, the full back speed. Okay, and the final else here is, this is when the ball is within 60 pixels of the bat, and in that case we set back to set acceleration y to 0. And if we run that now, what you'll see we have now is, as you can probably see, the computer's bat is following the ball. Okay. Right, it's not great now, but we are going to improve that. Right, let's take that bit of code out. We've got a lot of code in this. Let's select that a little bit and make it into a function. It's not necessary to do this, but it's probably quite useful. Call it AI move or move AI. Right, we've extracted that to keep the code down a bit. Okay, now just checking this. Right, let's the game actually plays okay now, but as you might see, the computer isn't great. You'll find that but it is quite hard to beat the computer, just simply because you can't really aim. The next stage is to aim. Okay. Okay, we are going to do one other thing to stop the bat sliding so much. Okay, and that is set friction on just bat 2. So if you go back to bat 2, and we'll say bat 2, and we'll set the friction. If you don't see it there, type it in. And we're going to set bat 2 friction to 0.2. Okay, run that now. You should find that it moves. It actually moves a lot slower, as you see. Maybe too slow. Let's try a friction of 0.1. Again, play with these values. Right. Okay, so we've got friction on now. In fact, I think the friction should actually be 0.02 is what I meant it to be. Let's try that. There we go, that was the value I wanted. Right. Okay, so you now find it's quite hard to actually beat. Even though it moves slowly, because we can't aim this ball, it's going to be quite easy to, quite hard to actually get the ball past the thing. Right. Okay, so the more tricky bit that we need to add in now to basically finish our game is not friction, it is the ability to aim the ball. So new line, in fact not back here, so this goes in before we hit the ball. So before we overlap with the ball, what we're going to do is this is the trickiest bit we've done so far. We're going to say var ball velocity, and we're going to set the ball velocity to math, create a vector 3. Now this is vector mass, which comes in handy for this kind of thing, and we're going to create the vector based on the ball speed x and the ball speed y, and we're going to ignore the z coordinate because we're not working in 3D. Going to add a new line now that we've got our vector. we're going to create a variable called ball speed, which is the true speed of the ball. And the way you can work that out is by using trigonometry, or you could just do vector maths and just do ball velocity length, which tells us the length of the vector, which is the speed. Now after doing all that, we're actually going to normalize it now. Okay, so ball velocity equals ball velocity, and there is a normalize option. Okay. Now, the reason we normalize it is when you normalize a vector, it changes the length to 1. Right. And there's a good reason for this. It's so that when we adjust the y velocity till we aim, it doesn't do it different amounts depending on how fast the ball is moving. We're going to make some slight changes now. Right, so when we set the speed, instead of setting the speed x to absolute of the existing speed, we're going to use ball velocity x instead. Right, on the next line, this is the difference. We're going to adjust the y this time. So ball almost set y, and we're going to set that based on the position of the ball on the y minus the position of the bat on the y. But we are going to divide that because it's too much, so I've found if you divide it by about 60, that's good. Okay, now I'm going to copy that and paste it onto the bat too. Delete bat 2 out. Right, so we're going to change this to bat 2, and it's kind of the same, apart from again we've got a negative in there because it's going the other direction, but everything else is the same, apart from again that'll be bat 2 obviously. Now, you might not fully understand this, but trust me, it makes the game a lot better. Right, next bit is we're going to now apply the speed back to it. So we're going to say ball velocity equals math, create a vector 3. So we're creating the vector again based on the new speed x, and same for that on the y, the speed on the y. Okay, we normalize again to get it to length 1 to speed 1, then we apply the speed that we saved earlier. So that's why I originally saved the speed, because we can now say scale it up based on the ball speed that we created earlier. And I'm going to change things a little. I'm going to speed it up every time the ball's hit by a very small amount of 1.001. So I'm going to slightly increase the speed every time the ball is hit to make the game more exciting. And lastly, what we're going to say is set the ball based on that new vector. So ball set speed to the ball velocity x and the ball velocity y. And Bob's your uncle. What should happen now is we can aim. If I hit the top of it, it should go up the way you see, which makes it a lot easier to beat the computer, like I did there. And there we go, I can aim it down the way by hitting at the bottom. And as you can see, it's now a lot easier to get by the computer. There we go, quite easy, isn't it? Now, actually we've made it too easy to get by the computer, so let's just adjust things slightly. If we go into AI move, let's change the AI speed and let's make it 1000, give the computer a bit of chance. We'll even adjust the distance it waits till it moves to 40 and run that, and now the computer should be quite hard to beat. See if I can actually get one. Oh, see, it's hard to get by it now. I'm the green bat, by the way. I know you can't see my finger. There we go, we managed to get by it. And we've got basically a decent game now. Right. And that's it. It's quite hard to beat that computer now. And it's fun because you can aim. Right, now the last bit I want to do. Oh crap. There we go. Okay, the last bit I'm going to do is add in sound. Okay, so we've got our Pong done. Let's go to add, look for sound. I'm going to search online and I'm going to look for Saber Block, which is one I prepared earlier. Just put that in here so you can hear it. Okay, so we've got a Saber sound, and to easily add that in, this is one of the most easiest bits we'll do in the whole game, is just look for the bit where the ball overlaps the bat, add a new line inside that if part, and say art, Saber block, play, copy that line, do it when it hits the other bat as well, so add a line in there, paste it in, run that, and game complete. We now have sound. And you'll find as well, I haven't showed you yet, but because we use the built-in game template, we also will have a score, a high score table. I need to actually try and get a point to get on the high score table. This is going to be a challenge. There we go. Right, I'll miss now. And you can fiddle about with the settings for the bat now and make the bat as good as you want to make it more challenging. But you see, when I miss the ball 3 times, we get game over. And we also will get a high score. There we go, a great high score of 1. And that's the end of this tutorial. Thanks for listening.